I want to begin this course with mindset. I really believe where the mind goes, everything else follows. I've had two really big influences on me in my professional career. One is Uильям О'Нил, where he has really created the foundation for everything this course is built upon, and I can't give him enough credit. And the second would be Rэй Dalio, who really influenced the way I perceive the world, how I think, how I try and grow my understanding of the markets and life. And one of the quotes that I like to refer to that he has is, the biggest threat to good decision making is harmful emotions. When you're investing, you need to know yourself, probably more than any other business. The reason for that is your entire account, your entire business is changing every day. That's not typical with other businesses. Part of that is whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. I know this seems kind of far removed from investing, but trading has so many ups and downs. And unless you have a very strong psychological basis, it's going to be very hard to deal with that. When I started trading, I knew I'd be a success. I just knew it because there was nothing that was going to hold me back from working hard at it. And I viewed every setback as really just one step closer to knowing what I need to know or knowing what mistakes I've made. And that really helped propel me to learn so much so quickly very early on in my career. However, when 2011 hit, I started to enter somewhat of a drawdown. And 2010 was probably the best year I'd ever had trading. But once that drawdown hit, I kind of withdrew a little bit. I got frustrated. And at the time, the gold market was in a great big bull market. And a lot of the thesis underlying the gold move was sound money and all of the problems in the world and why we needed gold. And it kind of, like I said, turned me into somewhat of a pessimist. And that pessimism took away, not from my profitability, but it really held back my growth as an investor, even as an individual. And it took me time to get over that plateau that I hit as a result of that pessimism. And I came to the conclusion, and again, this really goes back to Uильям О'Нил. He's always had this perspective that as long as there's freedom and capitalism around in the world, things will progress, things will get better. That's the recipe for development. Also, what I realized was your dreams really open up or limit you. I mean, pessimism will keep you down. If you don't think it's possible to do something, you just won't go ahead and do it. So to go back to when I first started, I was a teenager, late teens. I just saw this world of potential and I had to go after it. And I really consumed everything I could on the subject. I bought book after book after book. Now, if I would have had a negative attitude and figured that, trading, they say it's not possible, you can't make money active in the market, I just wouldn't have begun in the first place. So that mindset, that outlook is just so important, and you have to always force yourself to be an optimist. Like Uильям О'Нил says, I never met a successful pessimist. So my growth, or lack thereof as a trader, was really my own doing. And that's an important element. You have to realize that because investing is really an individual business. So you must take full responsibility. Blaming other people just disempowers you. I mean, how could you improve if you don't realize that the mistakes are your own? And every time you make a mistake and you adjust for that, you become that much better of an investor. And along with taking responsibility for your own actions really comes self-reliance and confidence. As an investor, you have to depend on yourself. It's a life-changing mindset. I found over the years, speaking with successful investors, that they typically are very self-reliant, and you will never feel weak again when you have the mentality because you're never depending on someone else to get the job for you. And with that mindset really comes the loss of FOMO, that fear of missing out. You're active in the market and you see something moving or somebody mentions something and you break your rules. Well, when you rely on yourself and you have that confidence that you know that you're applying your strategy the way you should, that feeling of FOMO is just going to go away. So as you can see, a lot of the errors in investing are really the result of poor confidence, a lack of self-reliance, and jumping around, jumping strategies, trying to listen to other people. And once you have that confidence, a lot of those errors go away. On the flip side of that would be overconfidence. And I think some of the biggest losses really occur when you're overconfident because you don't adhere to your risk management or your position sizing is just too big. So there's no amount of confidence that should override your risk management. Regardless of what you think of a position, what you think of a stock, you absolutely have to always adhere to your strategy, and part of any strategy has to have a strong component of risk management. You have to realize, you can't know everything. You have to know what you don't know. The market is just so complex that you can never fully anticipate everything that can possibly happen. I mean, regardless of what you know about companies, even if you're an expert in the airline business, you could never have anticipated the full impact of COVID in 2020 and what that would have done to the entire industry. So you have to always respect the market, always respect risk. You have to be confident, but know what you don't know. So lastly, you need to be all in. Coach Vince Lombardi said, most people fail not because of a lack of desire, but because of a lack of commitment. And I find that's absolutely true in the marketplace. Investing is a serious business. Big returns are possible, but with that comes risk. And your competitors are some of the most sophisticated people in the world. So every other investor in the world is really your competition. Even if you're working alongside them or you're talking or you're sharing strategy, at the end of the day, everyone's trying to buy that same stock and make that profit, and only one of you can get that fill. So you need to commit yourself fully to a method. And just like any other profession, that takes study and that takes effort. It doesn't mean you have to invest full time or be a professional investor, but you have to be all in on the fact that you're going to be trying to be the best investor that you can be. Now that we've established the importance of mindset, let's see how a professional investor thinks about the business of investing. A professional investor has a somewhat unusual way of thinking. I think the best way to describe that is the idea of selling on the news. I know when I first began investing and great news came out on a company, I just thought, wow, this is the best time to buy this stock, only to go and buy it to see the stock price fall. And the reason is that everyone's been buying the stock for weeks in anticipation of that news. And so once that news is out, there's no other reason to own the stock. And that just really takes time to understand that mindset. And really, as you learn the business and all the components behind that, you start to understand why that's the reaction a professional investor has. But it's rather counterintuitive. And I think the best way to really think about being a professional investor or how to approach the markets is, the quote that Uильям О'Нил had, whereas we're in the interpretation business, we're not in the prediction business. Everyone that usually comes to the market thinks that we're trying to predict what's going to happen next. And that's absolutely not the case. Nobody can. Anyone who promises that to you is lying. And really all we're doing is looking at underlying conditions, and we're working with probability as to when we have the best odds of making money. So we're really always constantly interpreting all the information that's available to us to make the best possible decision. And so really, you have to think like a casino. You have to think like the house. So think of the movie Casino. There's one scene where Robert De Niro is describing that after all the bright lights and shiny cars, the whole reason they're in Vegas in the middle of the desert is to take your money. And the house knows after so many turns of that roulette wheel that they're going to make money. They may lose on any single turn, but over time, they have that edge. They have that probability in their favor. And it's really important that you never mistake possibility for probability. You may lose or you may win, but what really counts is a probability of winning or losing. And life is really all about probability. But the best way to think about it is the concept of expected return. So a 50% chance of making $10 is really the same as a 100% chance of making $5. So whatever outcome you think you may have in terms of the amount of money you may make, you got to weight that by the probability that you will make it. And so that's really a different way of thinking. And that's really how a professional investor approaches the world. Another important topic is that most people want to be right rather than make money in the market. People want to be proven that they're right. Often the biggest errors are people not wanting to accept the fact that they're wrong, and they hold on to a losing position for way too long. In the market, it doesn't matter if you're wrong 7 out of 10 times, as long as those 3 times pay. And that's also consistent with other types of businesses. Look at baseball, for example. Someone could be a great batter only if they have an average of 300. So really what's most important is that you build a process to make money. Being right is not the key aspect of making money in the marketplace. It's always risk versus reward and probability. The goal is to focus on process. You need to absolutely avoid strategy drift. I know I tried every style that's available in the marketplace. I tried swing trading, day trading, growth investing, value investing, arbitrage, M&A. I really tried everything I can try. Part of that process was really trying to figure out what best suited me and my just insatiable desire to understand every aspect of the market. But the problem with strategy drift is that you never really perfect any one strategy. And at the same time, you tend to always be in the wrong place at the wrong time. By the time a strategy looks like it's working or is proving that it's working, well, what's obvious in the market usually doesn't work. And so that strategy's time is running its course, and it probably won't work for some time because strategies themselves are cyclical. For example, if you're a trend follower, markets will trend for long periods of time and then they won't. So if you're kind of jumping in after a large trend has occurred, chances are the best time to make money has already passed. Another problem with strategy drift is that you never really refine and improve the process. And in life, being a specialist really pays. So you want to find what strategy works for you and just be the best possible investor with that strategy. Yes, there are going to be times that are frustrating where your strategy is not in vogue or the markets are not cooperating, but you'll be there to fully capitalize when that strategy is working again. And trading is fun. I love it. It's my profession, it's my hobby, it's my pastime. It's really all I think about. But it's a business. And when starting a business, you need a business plan. If you were opening a business, a regular business, a retail business, what kind of store would you open up? Would it be a shoe store? Would it be a clothing store? You would sit down, you would plan that out. And it's very important that you approach the markets as a business. And later, we're actually going to go through the process of building a business plan for investing. And you'll see that this is going to be a core component that you'll be able to use to constantly refine and make yourself a better investor. So as you can imagine, investing can be a real roller coaster of emotions. And one of the hardest part of this business is really dealing with losses and with wins. And the real dreaded part of the business is the losing streak. There will be losses. I mean, you want an edge over time, like the casino, you want to think like the house. But in between, there will be those periods where you're on a losing streak. And this is kind of somewhat unique to the investing business. I mean, no other businesses really have a real-time, profit and loss column of their company value. And so as a result, you need kind of special emotional tools to deal with these losing streaks in these difficult times. And when you're in that losing streak, trust me, I know it feels like it's never going to end. You're off, your emotions are taking hold. You had all these dreams of everything you were going to accomplish, and suddenly all that has vanished and you're sitting with losses. But the best way to really end that losing streak is to cut your losses, stop, regain composure. Remember what Ray Dalio said, the biggest threat to good decision making is harmful emotions. And emotions are never greater than when you're losing money. Trust me, it's going to hit you to your soul. I've been there, and it's really difficult to deal with. The best way that I deal with losing streaks is you want to trade smaller, and small wins lead to new confidence. You want to spread your buys out over time. You want to sleep. You want to exercise. Investing is really a full life effort. I mean, the great investor, Jesse Livermore, who was covered extensively in Reminiscence of a Stock Operator, he would go to bed at 10 o'clock. Even if he was at a party, he would go home because he had to be rested for the market the next day. And so it's really important that if you want to be the best investor, the best trader you can be, it really is a full life effort. And sometimes you're losing, but you just don't want to give up what's going to be the big winner. Most of my biggest convictions prove to be wrong. And so you have to always use your risk management. And when your emotions are running high, either after a series of losses or even a series of wins, that's typically when you're going to start to violate your risk management. And you can never do that. So big conviction can never override your risk management. But as I just mentioned, there is the other side of the coin. I mean, I know losses are discouraging, but the biggest sin you can make in investing are huge losses. Huge losses take years to overcome, and sometimes never. Not only is there a major hit to your capital, but also to your mental capital. And it's really hard to regain that confidence once it's lost. So I would much rather take a series of small losses that I can go for a jog or I can go work out and forget about than take a massive loss that now I have to completely reimagine how I'm going to run my business. It's just absolutely earth-shattering. You do not want to go there. So always keep your risk management in check. And also Ray Dalio says, pain plus reflection equals progress. In fact, I think a lot of the biggest progress I ever made in the market was as a result of a losing streak. I had to sit there, look at myself and say, what's going wrong? What isn't working? And that's really when you develop new rules, new strategies, new tactics to counteract the mistakes that you've made. You realize either something's missing in your investment strategy or your emotions are out of control and you need some new rules to keep those in check. So although it's frustrating, a losing streak can actually really help you become a better investor. But let's not forget why we're here. I know I'm going on about the tough times because that's really when you need the most help. But everyone is here to make big money, and myself included. But let me tell you, there's another pitfall there as well. and too much money can throw you off. I know my worst trading periods always came after I made too much money. And the reason for that is balance is what counts in the marketplace. You have to always think clearly. And so making too much money, you start to feel confident, you start to put on too many positions or take on big position size. There's times where I really felt I had the Midas touch. Every trade I would touch, instant profit, unbelievable. And really, it's not that I was a perfect investor, but I was really just bang on perfect with the trend. I was in the zone and all of my strategies were working perfectly. But the problem is trends end. And if you're being sloppy as a result of making too much money, once that trend ends, you're going to get back a lot of that hard-earned profit. So it's really important. If you're making a lot of money, you have to stay calm. You have to always stick to your plan, and you really want to stay balanced. So even if you have a winning mindset, persistence is probably the most important element for success. One of my favorite quotes is by former President Calvin Coolidge, where he says, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing's more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." And I think that's absolutely true in the marketplace. You have to never give up. History's greatest successes, like the light bulb, were a result of Thomas Edison never giving up, trying thousands and thousands of different materials to get that light bulb to work. And I love great success stories. I love to go back and read about how those successes occurred. It's people sitting down, working really hard at their craft, and being the best they can be. So really, the last quote I want to stick to is what my dad always tells me, is that if it was easy, everyone would do it. Whatever your plan, whether you're a part-time investor, whether you're a full-time trader, you need consistency. If it's 10 hours a week, you need 10 hours a week every week. If it's full-time, you need to be there every day. For example, whether I'm on vacation or whether I'm sick, I know what the market's doing. I know what my positions are, and I'm always attentive. I can't tell you how many times I've had a terrible headache, but I had to sit at that desk and watch that market and make sure everything was going according to plan. There's no backup. It's all on your shoulders. Again, self-reliance and confidence. So this section is really going to be an ongoing work for you. You need to develop that faith in yourself, and that comes with time. But it's important that you're aware of all these mental pitfalls. Sometimes people aren't aware that they're even out there when they start investing. I really want to give you every chance for success. Now, there's nothing more exhilarating than having a huge position on in a big winner. But to handle it right, you need the right mindset and plan and the right expectations. So let's jump into planning your vision of your future, and let's take a look at how all of this comes together.